The Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development, has entered into a public-private partnership arrangement with a private firm to establish a maintenance, repair and overhaul facility for aircraft. The new facility is expected to operate as an approved maintenance organization under the regulation of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Now, according to reports, this facility, the first of its kind in Nigeria, aims to meet growing maintenance needs for aircraft operating within the country, which currently often require expensive and time-consuming trips to foreign maintenance centers. Sean Mendis, aviation consultant, joins me for more on this. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Now, I'd like you to talk to us. What more do we need to know about this deal? I mean, what insight do you have?
Well, the details we have on this so far are very scant. We've just picked up an article where unnamed sources have said that the government has concluded this deal with a unnamed so far private partner. We know that a few months ago, the federal government had said that they were looking at getting into such a partnership in order to, develop an MRO in Nigeria. And I think, the MRO itself is a very good project, but I think like many other deals where government is involved in, the devil is going to be in the details in terms of who the partner is, what the government's involvement is, how much money from the taxpayers going into it, what special conditions are being attached to it, and so forth. So in concept, it is a very good thing, but I think, we'll have to reserve judgment as to how this is going to go until there are a bit more details released.
Well, away from, talking about these details that we need, because we all know the devil is in the detail, but I want to assume this is music to your ears. So tell us, what are the expected implications of this sort of arrangement?
Oh, definitely. If executed properly, this kind of arrangement is something that pretty much any country in Africa will benefit from. An approved maintenance organization is basically a third-party repair shop or maintenance shop where airlines are able to take their aircraft for scheduled or unscheduled maintenance. So just like, when you have a car and the car needs its servicing, but you don't have a dealership nearby, sometimes you're having to, drive to another city or wherever else to go to an approved dealer. However, when you have one of these approved maintenance organizations in the country itself, it makes it a lot easier for these aircraft operators, for these airlines to just take the plane to Lagos, to Abuja, to Enugu, to wherever this AMO might be located, rather than having to fly it into Europe or the United States or Dubai or wherever else they're currently having to send it. So that in itself is going to be a huge benefit to the operators. It will have other benefits in terms of, being able to pay presumably at least a portion of the labor cost in Naira. Things like the spare parts and stuff, that is still going to be dollar denominated, as, those are still coming from manufacturers and so forth. But the more of this that you can actually bring into Nigeria will increase opportunities for highly skilled jobs. It will increase it'll reduce the costs for the aircraft operators, and it overall just be a generally beneficial thing. So, it's a great positive if they're able to execute on it, and I think it's something that has to be pursued in concept, whether by government or private sector or whoever else.
Interesting. I mean, talking about all of this, I'm just wondering, and I'm being curious like you, do we have any insight regarding, the competitiveness and even the transparency of the bidding process? Because if we're hearing that there is already a firm that says that the whole process, whether the bidding and all of those, have already been concluded, what do you know about that?
I think it is fairly safe to assume that if government is involved in a bidding process, there is not going to be the level of transparency that most people would expect that government will provide. And I think that is just the unfortunate reality of, any government where taxpayer and public faith in that government is lacking. So I think there will always be calls in terms of the transparency. But, as I said, I'm not going to give it a bad name until we see some more details, or, if something actually begins to happen without seeing any details. To this point of time, we've just simply heard that there has been an agreement concluded, and, I'll give credit to whoever has been able to conclude an agreement on the hope that it has been done on competitive and transparent terms.
Yeah, I like that hope. Well, what other developments do you sort of anticipate as Nigeria seeks to develop a self-sufficient aviation infrastructure?
Well, I think, things like this are very critical towards developing a self-sufficient infrastructure. You've seen that, you know, as I said before, we've seen a lot of airlines having to send their planes abroad. We've seen both private and government get involved with this. Recently, we had United Nigeria Airlines also sign an MOU with a partner to set up their own AMO in Nigeria as well. So that is another thing which may be promising if it comes to fruition. Other areas where there is much need for this is in training. Right now, there is a very limited amount of training infrastructure for skilled technical positions like pilots and engineers. There's NCAT and Zaria, but there's limited other training centers and similar. And I think, expanding the training capability, once again, whether that's going to be by government, whether that's going to be by private sector, whether it's going to be by PPPs, I think, investment in the infrastructure is going to be the very critical thing in order to help that infrastructure grow, to help the industry develop, and of course, to make it more self-sufficient, which is critical for a country like Nigeria, which is struggling and has been struggling for the last decade or so with foreign exchange issues.
Right, let's close with this. I'd like you to talk about the potential uncertainties and risks that are associated with, this sort of PPP.
Well, I think, certainly there's risk related with any project between government and private sector. There's going to be a political risk that governments change every 4 years pretty much. And consequently, investors might fall out of favor. Policies the government might put in place might fall out of favor. These are long-term investments. Even if they break ground on this facility tomorrow, it's probably not going to be until 2026 or 2027 before this becomes operational, and not full-fledged operational, probably even for another 3 to 4 years after that. I think other risks that I have there is in terms of being able to stop it, because, while this may be in Nigeria, there is, as I mentioned earlier, a lack of sufficient technically qualified indigenous people in Nigeria able to work in this. And so that means you're probably going to have to bring in a lot of expats, which means, being able to balance the cost effectiveness of this together with the costs of it developing this from scratch in Nigeria is going to be a challenge, not an insurmountable one. And if you get it right, the potential for benefits are tremendous. But it's something that one would hope that the partner who has been brought into this has properly catered for in the business plan that they've been able to sell to government.
Right. Thank you so much, Sean Mendis, aviation consultant, for your thought and your time on the show today.
Thank you.